Hi everyone. Let's see muscles of the shoulder region. So we have three groups of muscles in the shoulder region. We have anterior axioappendicular muscles, posterior axioappendicular muscles, and scapulohumeral muscles. So in this video, I'll be covering only the anterior axioappendicular muscles. So there are four anterior axioappendicular muscles. So these are the pectoralis major muscle, pectoralis minor, subclavius, and serratus anterior muscle. So first, let's see pectoralis major muscle. So pectoralis major. So pectoral, it means chest. Major indicates its size. So it's a large fan-shaped muscle that covers the superior part of our thorax. So this is the pectoralis major muscle. So when we see its origin, it originates from sternum, clavicle, and from the costal cartilage of ribs, and is inserted into the intertubercular groove of humerus. So based on its origin and insertion, based on the orientation of fibers, so when this muscle contracts, it will adduct, flex, and medially rotate humerus. So its main actions are adduction, flexion, and medial rotation. And this muscle is innervated by medial and lateral pectoral nerves. So these are branches from brachial plexus, and they supply the pectoralis major muscle. So in a real time, when this muscle contracts, as you see, it adducts. But in addition to adduction, it flexes and medially rotates humerus. So when we are doing arm wrestling, we'll be mainly using this muscle. And when we are throwing a ball across our body, similarly, we'll be mainly using this muscle. So these activities require adduction, flexion, and medial rotation. The second muscle in the second anterior axioappendicular muscle is pectoralis minor muscle. So similarly, this muscle is also found in the chest, but it's relatively small, minor. And pectoralis minor lies under pectoralis major muscle. We cannot see pectoralis minor on the surface. We need to cut the pectoralis major muscle to see pectoralis minor. So as you see it here, this is pectoralis minor, but it's completely covered by pec major. So minor is a triangular muscle, as you see it here. So it originates from third up to fifth rib, and it's inserted into the coracoid process of scapula. So when you see its action, with fixed ribs, it can pull the scapula forward and downward. But with fixed scapula, it can elevate the ribs. So this muscle can act on both sides. So with fixed scapula, it can elevate these three ribs. So it can assist respiration. But with fixed ribs, it can pull the scapula forward and downward. And it's innervated by medial pectoral nerve. The other muscle is subclavius muscle. So subclavius, sub means below, clavius clavicle. So this muscle lies below clavicle, and the muscle lies horizontally. So you can see it here. This is subclavius muscle. And this muscle protects the subclavian vessels. The subclavian artery vein, they run behind this muscle, and it gives protection to these vessels. So it originates from first rib, as you see it here, and it's inserted into clavicle. So in the middle part of clavicle, there is a groove which is known as subclavian groove. So that groove is insertion site for subclavius muscle. So its action is it holds and it depresses the clavicle. It holds the clavicle in its position. And it's innervated by nerve to subclavius. Very simple. Innervation to subclavius muscle, nerve to subclavius. And this nerve is a branch from brachial plexus. So subclavius muscle, it holds the clavicle in its position, especially when we are pulling something very hard. The clavicle has a tendency to dislocate at its sternoclavicular end or at the sternoclavicular joint. So this muscle holds the clavicle in its position. For example, when we are playing tug of wars, this muscle holds the clavicle in its position. The other anterior axioappendicular muscle is the serratus anterior muscle. So serratus, it's named based on its shape. It has a sawtooth appearance, or it has digitations. So serrated means sawtooth appearance. So serratus anterior muscle, it covers the lateral aspect of our thorax or our chest as you see it. And it forms the medial wall of the axilla. So this muscle originates from the first 8 or 9 ribs, from rib 1 up to 8 or rib 1 up to 9, and it's inserted into the medial border of the scapula as you see it here. So when this muscle contracts, it will pull the scapula laterally. And this movement is known as protraction. So its action is for protraction of the scapula. And it also holds the scapula against the thoracic wall. It pulls the scapula forward. And it's innervated by long thoracic nerve. You can see it here. This is the long thoracic nerve. It runs on the surface of the muscle and it innervates this muscle. And long thoracic is also a branch from brachial plexus. So its action is protraction of scapula. So protraction and retraction of the scapula are slightly different from protraction and retraction. So normally, protraction is moving anteriorly and retraction is moving posteriorly. But in case of the scapula, moving towards the vertebral column is retraction, and moving the scapula away from the vertebral column is protraction. So serratus anterior, it moves the scapula away from the vertebral column. And it's well developed in boxers and it's known as boxer's muscle. So it's used for punching. So when there is any injury to the long thoracic nerve, it results in paralysis of the serratus anterior muscle. So when the serratus anterior is paralyzed, the scapula becomes retracted. So the antagonist muscles, the rhomboid muscles, they become active and they will pull the scapula towards the vertebral column. And the scapula becomes retracted, and this retracted scapula is known as winged scapula. So paralysis of the serratus anterior muscle results in winged scapula, and it's due to a lesion or any damage to the long thoracic nerve. So that's all about the anterior axioappendicular muscles. In the next video, I will cover the posterior axioappendicular muscles.